In this video, I'm going to share 3 simple grounding techniques that you can use anytime you're feeling anxiety, stress, or an overall sense of uneasiness. Now, there are a bunch of techniques that you can use, but these 3 are especially useful at any given time because they don't rely on carrying around objects such as crystals or rocks, and they don't require you to stop what you're doing to focus on your breath or close your eyes and try to calm yourself down, and they don't require you to visualize, meditate, or say affirmations. You can do these in the moment in a public place when you're around a lot of people and no one will know. I'm going to show you what these techniques are, how to do them, and when it's best to do them. Hi, my name is Tree, and I help you master your energy so you can heal your past and create a new and empowered future. Let's dive in. All right, first, it's important to understand what grounding is. In general, grounding helps us reconnect with ourselves, the present moment, and the physical world around us. It's a really powerful tool to anchor our energy when life feels a bit too overwhelming. I teach that we are a powerful force of light and that all the strength and power we need comes from inside us, from who we truly are as souls and our connection to that soul energy. And once we fully know and embrace who we really are, we can stand strong in our own power, no matter what the circumstances outside us. So to me, grounding is getting in touch with our divine self and anchoring into that so that our ego, our small human self, isn't running the show with its fears, doubts, and worries. It's okay to feel those things. It's just not beneficial to let those things control us. When they've taken over, we've lost our power and we're being run by our fearful emotions, our anxiety, our stress, right? So the first technique to help you stay in your power when you're starting to feel anxious, stressed, or uneasy is what I call feel your feet. One of my clients used this technique to stand her ground with her narcissistic parent, who almost always dominates her energy and bulldozes over her boundaries. Every time she says no, her mom always pulls out the guilt or uses other emotionally manipulative means to get her to do what she wants. So she used the feel your feet technique, and she was able to finally stand up to her mom for the very first time in her life at the age of 45. And she was able to maintain her boundary, not going back on her promise to herself. And here's how you do it. Whether you're standing or sitting, put both feet on the floor. You want to plant both feet on the ground. If you're sitting and your legs are crossed, uncross them so that both feet can be on the floor. Wiggle your toes a bit just to activate the energy of your feet and press your feet down into the ground as if you're trying to push through. So this does several things. First, it creates a psychological feeling of being grounded. Second, it takes your mind off your thoughts and feelings of anxiety and stress. When we're anxious, our minds often get sucked into focusing on our anxiety, which makes it worse. And we feel very top-heavy, meaning that a bunch of thoughts are swirling around in our head, mostly negative doomsday type thoughts. Like, what if this happens? And, oh my gosh, I'm getting anxious. What if it gets worse? What if I can't control it? What am I going to do? I don't know what to do. It's so overwhelming. I got to breathe. We even start to breathe shallowly, and we're not getting enough oxygen to help us think clearly. So when you can put your attention on your feet, you shift the balance of focus from the top to the bottom to the base, where you actually physically have more stability. So you want to plant your feet firmly on the floor or the ground. Press them in so it's not just a thought in your head that you're doing this, but a physical action that you're taking, something that your body is physically involved in. If you happen to be walking towards something like a confrontation or a difficult conversation or an emotionally overbearing person or a stressful circumstance, or maybe even something you really want to do, but you're nervous about doing it, like giving a public speech or talking on stage, you can use this technique by becoming acutely aware of each step. So as your foot hits the ground, press in harder than usual and imagine leaving behind a little bit of stress and anxiety each time you lift up your foot and picking up strength and power each time you put your foot down. So by the time you get to the stage or wherever it is that you're going, you'll feel less anxious. And then you can plant both feet on the ground and continue with this technique. Planting both feet on the ground anchors you into the earth, and it acts as a reminder that you have the power of the earth supporting you so that you don't get carried away in either the other person's emotion or your own emotions. If you're with someone who's overbearing or who has dominant energy, by focusing on your feet, you lessen the importance of the other person's energy and you strengthen your own. Especially if you're empathic and you tend to absorb other people's emotions, This technique can help you ground yourself in your own energy. And if you're not strong enough in your own energy yet, this technique helps you ground yourself in the strength of the earth's energy. So imagine roots growing out of your feet and reaching deep into the earth, giving you the strength, power, and support for whatever it is that you're facing. The earth is stronger than any human emotion. Whether you're with a difficult person or you're struggling with your own difficult emotions, or both, you can allow those emotions to be while your focused awareness is on the strength rising up from the earth into your feet. This helps you get through the moment in a more grounded and more calm way. Okay, the second technique is touch your tips. A reader of mine used this recently when she was in the car with her husband. He was driving and they were about to drive across a bridge. She has severe anxiety every time she goes over a bridge, and it limits her, keeping her from doing things that she wants to do and traveling to certain places with her husband so they can do things together. She's been practicing this technique since, and now she can go over a bridge with zero anxiety. The touch your tips technique looks like this. You want to touch the tips of your fingers to themselves. Now, I also teach this technique using objects that you can carry with you, like a crystal or a piece of jewelry or a gemstone. You can even use a pen if that's available, right? Just move through your fingers, pressing down on the pen, so you can physically touch any object that's already there. But for the sake of this video, we want to keep these techniques usable for any time, anywhere, at a moment's notice. So even if you don't have your gemstone with you one day, or you forget your grounding necklace, for example, you can still do this technique no matter what. I touch the tips of my fingers together because I'm not always wearing clothes with pockets, or I'm not always carrying a purse. My fingertips will always be there, hopefully. Right? I don't do this technique anymore because I don't really need to, but when I touched my fingertips, I mentally said these words. I would say, these are my fingers. I'm touching them. No one else. I'm real. My fingers. And it reminds me that I'm in control of me and that I'm real. I used this technique when I was a kid, and it just came intuitively to me to do this. It was just an internal conversation that I had when I got nervous or anxious. I would just touch my tips. I'm real. I'm me. No one else. These are my fingers, right? And it sounds ridiculous, but we empaths and sensitive, intuitive people, we often don't feel real because someone else's emotion has taken over ours and we've lost ourselves in them. And that's what happens to very sensitive and empathic children. You don't know why 1 minute they're okay and the next minute they're having a meltdown. They don't know why either. We can't tell the difference between whether it's their emotion we're feeling or ours. We've lost our sense of energetic boundary. Not to mention that we're so used to people pleasing and fawning that we don't even know who we are anymore or have a sense of our own power and importance. It's always about someone else and what they want and what they're doing and what they need. We just sort of take the back burner and we're secondary. So touching your touchstone objects or your fingertips puts you back in control. It reminds you that you are you and the world or whoever is in front of you is not. And that you are in charge of you and no one and nothing else. Mudras are gestures that in Sanskrit literally mean seal. So when I make a hand gesture or simply touch my tips together, I'm envisioning sealing myself to higher power, to higher awareness, to the truth of who I am. You can do this technique when you're at a public gathering or at a party and you're feeling social anxiety and awkward or nervous. If you're holding a glass or a bottle of water, just press a little harder on each finger on the glass. Nobody can tell that I'm doing it right now. Or if you're holding your phone, press a little harder on each finger upon the phone. Or if your hand is down by your side or in your lap, if you're sitting down, you can touch your tips and no one would even notice. I'm doing it right now and you have no idea that I'm doing it. It would be the same thing as if I'm sitting across the dinner table from you. You can't tell that I'm doing it. No one's going to be staring down here at your fingers. So this is a great technique to do without having to take a break from the stimulation of the noise and the people and their energy. Okay, so we have the feel your feet and the touch your tips technique. These first two techniques can be found in my book, The Empath's Guide to Emotional Survival, Grounding Techniques for Empaths, Lightworkers, and Sensitive Souls. I'll post a link in the description below so you can get it on Amazon or wherever you buy your books. It's a quick, easy read. Those two techniques are in there along with other techniques as well. And the third technique is what I call summon your senses. This technique is good anytime you're feeling overwhelmed, anxious, or stressed. So the idea, similar to the first two techniques, is to give you something else to focus on. In the Feel Your Feet technique, we put our attention on our feet and we summon the grounding strength of the earth to help us feel grounded and anchored. In the Touch Your Tips technique, we put our attention on our fingers and we summon the all-knowing powers of higher awareness to help us seal ourselves to the bigger truth of who we are so that we can be grounded in this present moment and not let our anxiety or our emotions carry us away. And then in the Summon Your Senses technique, we're going to summon the power of our sensory awareness to help us ground and anchor into our power. So let me explain. In whatever situation you find yourself in, let's just say that you're at a family holiday gathering and there's a lot of chaotic energy that might be triggering you, right? Like old, healthy, and toxic family patterns emerging with your parents or siblings and maybe even a narcissistic family member or two. But for whatever reason, you have to be there and you can't leave. So while everyone is doing their thing, you want to start putting your attention on any of your 5 senses. Any of them, not all of them, any of them. You might think that there's only chaotic and toxic energy going on, but there's so much more. What are the smells taking up sensory energy in the house? Is it a pot roast in the oven? Is it fresh baked cookies? Is it the smell of coffee with hazelnut cream in your sister's coffee cup right next to you? What are the objects taking up sensory energy? Use your sense of sight to witness what else might be in the house other than your crazy family and your anxiety. Can you look around and identify all of the, say, green things in the room? How about all of the right angles or all the round things, circle things? What else do you see? And what about textures? Look at all the contrasting and infinite textures around you. The dining room table might be flat and hard, while the rug right below your feet might be shaggy and soft, or the spoon might have a bumpy designed handle, while the rounded head part is smooth. Do you get the idea? You want to take your attention off your anxiety and stress and off the thing that you think is causing you anxiety and stress. If you're a family gathering, it's probably a family member. And you want to start using your 5 physical senses to find other things to put your attention on. Sight, sound, taste, smell, and touch. When you start paying attention to the things that were previously in the background, you put them in the foreground. And the things that you previously had in the foreground, like your crazy toxic family and your stress, now go in the background. Now you hear the refrigerator humming, you hear the air conditioner blowing, you hear the cars passing by on the street, you hear the clinking of the dishes in the kitchen, you hear the birds outside chirping, you hear some weird tapping noise, and on, right? You can do all this, any of these 3 techniques, while you're still doing whatever it is that you're doing, while you're in the room or location with people right in front of you, even as they're talking to you, and no one will know. No one can see your feet pressing down harder. No one will stare at your fingers looking for little movements unless you're actually doing it up here. Then that's a different story. But if you do them down below, or if you do them while you're holding a pen, or if you do them while you're holding my book that you're reading, nobody will know. You can use these techniques to ground yourself and stand in your own power so that you can become present and engaged, and you won't be so stressed, overwhelmed, and anxious. You can be aware in the present moment and available for all those around you and for yourself. All right, so there you have it. 3 simple grounding techniques that you can use anytime you're feeling anxiety, stress, or an overall sense of uneasiness or overwhelm. You've got Feel Your Feet, Touch Your Tips, and Summon Your Senses. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the subscribe button now so you'll never miss another video. And don't forget that in the description, I have a link to my emotional survival guide, which includes more grounding techniques for empaths, lightworkers, and sensitive souls.